Hello and welcome to the next Easy Publish Show episode 24. It's about externalizing Easy Publish legacy code. My name is Ivo. I'm from a company called Netgen, and I finally have my dear colleague behind me who is responsible for all the problems with the network and the video and the sound. So I can beat him up later. It will probably have, probably have some problems because my guest is on Wi-Fi, so I expect some trouble. Our guest today is Bertrand Dunoguer. He is from the Easy Engineering team. Bertrand, say hello.
Hello there.
Yeah. We should have another guest. We should have had another guest, Jérôme Villedant, who is also from the Easy Engineering team, but he excused himself earlier today. I will need to hassle Bertrand a bit more. So just to quickly jump into the topic, externalizing legacy code, there was a blog post on the community site about this big success. It's probably just one of the steps towards Easy Platform, which might not be even big one, but it's still a kind of a new one is not yet there, etc., etc. So tell us a bit about this small step for Easy Engineering, but a big step for Easy Community.
It is indeed a big step for us as well, or else I wouldn't have published a blog post about it. But as you said by itself, what we did when we externalized legacy the way we did back in January, it's not like one huge step. It's the conclusion of 3 years of work. So maybe I will summarize what was done technically for those who maybe didn't follow up. So we had legacy on one side, our 10+ years old legacy. And when we wrote Easy 5, it's what we did when we pulled the plug out 2 months ago, was simply take all of those libraries and bundles and move them to a different repo. So that legacy isn't removed, it's made optional. So that's kind of what we did. Gotta say that the unplugging part was surprisingly simple, but I guess it's because we prepared for it in advance, like 3 years in advance.
So there was no major issues. It's just putting some code in a different place, and of course some paths or whatever needed to be changed. So that was more or less it, right?
Path, not really. Actually, Composer made it that simple because we had just created, well, the incriminated folders were basically 2 places in the kernel. It was on one hand the Easy Publish legacy bundle, so providing all the services and tags and so on required by the legacy integration, and the Easy Publish core MVC legacy. So basically everything that didn't belong in the bundle, but was used by the legacy integration. All we did was filter those using obscure Git commands, filter those to a new repo, and just use PSR and autoloading. So we just told Composer that instead of finding those files here, they would be in that folder instead with this namespace mapping. And that was kind of it. So what made it simple is actually PSR4.
Okay. So I suppose Jordi, who was our guest 2 shows before, he would probably be very happy to hear that Composer did did a major part in that, in dependency configuration, let's say, and the PSR, of course.
Yes, it does make plenty of sense. I mean, we didn't have to ask ourselves the question many times. But okay, let's just use PSR for mapping and move it and create a new package system tree. And this part didn't have any surprise.
Okay, so the major let's say note to this is that even that we now have this all legacy stuff in a separate repo. So that's what I call and you called externalizing. it's still required for normal operations, let's say.
Define normal operations.
Normal operations mean a lot of features from the admin interface. There's also search. There is also let's say collected info thing and stuff like that. So what is if you speak about features that people from the Easy community are used to, it's still required, right?
It is. At least if you need to manage the contents, it is required. Us being a CMS, not being able to manage contents, yes, we at least need the back office plus, of course, the various major features you mentioned.
Right.
But at least now there is an option not to have it, even though it's not very practical right now in March.
No, of course. So we, like we said, it's just one step in the direction of Easy platform. So I also noticed that what made a lot of sense is now when it is possible to let's say install Easy without legacy, even it's still needs some major features to be finished, like the interface, etc. But what was the first step for to add the missing thing is the installer. So what stuff did you do there, and how can you compare it with the legacy installer? What's there and what's not there, etc.
Which end do I start with? Well, first we went for the simplest possible solution. What we wanted was simple. We figured that people wanted to get Easy Platform to work. That was the first thing, and we didn't want to go for, well, step 0 would have been manual installation instructions. But since we need to install it to run tests, we wrote an installer. So what we integrated was very simple. It was no user interaction at this point. Everything by default, English only, default login and password for admin user, and default data. But that aside, we also were careful enough to use an interface for the installer so that anybody can add his own installer. The current installer for demo that installs demo content is something like 12 lines, including method names and curly brackets, meaning it's very, very simple. But it's defined enough so that even more complex installers can be used. So what we have now is a command line installer that doesn't ask any question and installs either Easy Demo or Easy Demo without content. Okay.
I mean, we actually have also something like that already done, and you probably know who did it. So we will not go into that. This is more of a topic for we are speaking more about the Easy Vanilla thing. So so you have an installer. Of course, you said there is no user interface. From my personal yet okay, but from my personal view, it's something that is not actually very necessary, because usually what you in a legacy installer, what you would do is just answer some simple questions that can be also done in like in a shell script, and it was usually done by people that are technically very skilled. So, from my point of view, a UI for the installer is not a very important thing. But
well, we had this very discussion at least 5 times here at Easy, and I kind of agree with you overall. We still think that there are use cases where somebody non-technical might want to take and then install Easy Publish and configure it, but it would involve something like choosing among pre-made sites or being able to configure something at install, and we just don't have anything for this yet. So yes, I agree. Given the audience, this will serve much more users than a web interface would. Not to mention permission issues and so on, which we all know about in a website. wizard, not short-term plans, but it also depends on what people ask for. It might turn out that
you see it's necessary to make.
Well, there is one thing I intended to add, but given the rush, I ended up descoping it. I would at least like to make it possible to customize the admin password. Given that in the new interface we don't have anything to prioritize right now when it comes to installer, because the current one installs what we needed to install. We all know that we
will not go into which kind of features will be developed or not in a midterm, let's say, or in a long term. For example, the collected finally at the search, which we still currently kind of fall back to the legacy one. So we are still waiting for that. It should be soon out, I suppose. User interface, and with the search and with the some version of installer, and this will be, let's say, rounding the features of the Easy platform to at least support most important features from the legacy.
Including with newer versions. We have no close plans that would make it incompatible and that we can't work around. To date. And overall, fact is that over the last year, more or less, we didn't have to fix so much when it comes to legacy support. It was sandboxed, or at least black boxed, at a level that made it safe enough. We had a few bugs here and there, but overall,
so it's kind of the curve of new issues is going down because there are no new features. But yeah,
it is part of the plan. It can be compatible with legacy, but it will always be the same thing. Is it worth writing support for legacy? And we have sort of approach possibilities and so on.
I mean, the point is that if you add a new feature that actually don't collide with existing features, that might be in some sort of interference with the old one. Actually the same thing, breaking things together. This is that I suppose. In the short term, there is no plans to change the data model, which will immediately deprecate.
When it comes to storage, fact is that right now, given what is left to do, we don't really have reasons to focus on it. If we had to pick one reason why we would heavily work on storage, it's actually search. It's one of the features you mentioned a lot. Because the legacy storage engine, when it comes to default search, uses the old MySQL-based or database-based search, and it doesn't perform better when it comes to search without touching legacy itself. So the situation is pretty similar in that regard.
Yeah. Okay, I know that there are some work being done with search, and we really hope that it will be,
it has never been more ready.
Yeah, should be.
Trying to think. Well, the fact is that I don't migrate or use legacy that much, personally at least. We keep on using the parameters YAML dist file that is shipped with the Symfony. So we either install or update or use create projects on Easy platform. It will at the end of the install ask. So it's a standard way. So it was just a tiny detail that I forgot, but overall, no, I don't see anything that I would mention. What you did with your own forms bundle, he looked at what Heliopsis did, and while he's prototyping what will be the integration of forms.
Might still be stored, well, obviously because of backwards compatibility, it should be stored in the database, but
I might have to call my lawyer on this one. No, seriously, fact is that with the new structure and architecture, it will be easy to do this, but it hasn't been even discussed lately, and it's kind of unrelated anyway. What we are doing now is connecting whatever comes out of the API to Symfony Forms And whatever happens, even if we make it possible to store content types differently, they will still go through the API, meaning that what we do now will keep working.
So it's basically in let's say in a few years.
But technically it's perfectly feasible, yes. I was thinking of one based on Git, but Git and
Great, but
one thing I can say based on my discussions with him, it seems quite clear that Symfony forms will work for this. It's the mapping between their features and what we have, where they have so many features. But it will just work out. Custom field type in terms of forms for each field type with its own interface.
Not need the legacy, but the thing is that you know, over the 3 or 4 years of development, what didn't choose Symfony or some similar framework and started to do some stuff on your own. You know, do you think would you be right now? Yeah. Do you ever consider this?
I'm obtaining Zeta components instead. But when you see how big the team had to be to build the components, I'm really happy we did not. We don't want to be big enough to both maintain a framework and create a content management framework. We have more than enough on our plate, and given how
I just wondered, you know, what's your take on this?
But I think we don't even consider the possibility anymore of not doing it. It feels so natural. We
again seems that everything went well today. So Angry Che is happy.
Thank you very much for hosting.